Hey Media Arts 1, 2, and Independent Study students. In this video, I'm going to show you how to start and prep your pages for the visual journal prompt pages that are assigned at the beginning of every month. So let's get to it. All right, even before we begin to get started on our visual prompt journal page, you'll need to grab a couple of things. In your art kits, you are going to have two brushes, a size 6 and a size 10 round watercolor brush. You're obviously going to need your watercolors in red, blue, and yellow. You are also going to need some water. Okay, to get started, what you're going to do, and not every page has to be started like this. I'm just showing you how to get started with just the materials that you have on hand. So I want you to take some water and put it on your sketchbook page. Your papers in your sketchbooks are designed to withstand water. However, here's the caveat or the kind of rule with that. If you have standing puddles on your paper, sorry about that. So you see how my document camera, the light has a little bit of a glare. That tells me that the paper is wet. You don't want to have standing puddles because it will cause the paper to ripple and eventually tear if you are constantly going over that area with a damp brush. Okay. And I'm going to intentionally leave some areas, some blank areas on my watercolor paper. There are no rules saying you have to cover it completely, but I'm just going to leave it like that. One other thing I forgot to mention is that while you're painting, you will need some kind of palette to put your paint on. You are to never actually work directly from the watercolor pans. So I am breaking my own rule, mostly because I forgot to grab some kind of flat surface to load up with plain water and then taking my brush and loading it with water. Watercolors have the word water in it, so meaning the paint is going to be translucent on your paper. You should be able to see the paper through the paint. If you're wanting it to be more a solid color, then maybe watercolor is not for you, but we'll be working with it because it can be a tricky and wonderful media. Okay. Oops, I touched my microphone, so sorry if I bumped it. In terms of a watercolor palette, you don't need a fancy watercolor palette like this. Some people use paper foam plates. Some people use plain white plates. If you are going to be using like an actual porcelain dishware plate, try and pick one that is light in color so that way you're able to see those light colors easier. Okay, so prepping your page can be easily as putting color or paint down on your paper. I'm going to show you some other examples of what you could possibly do. So you can do random shapes with just different colors. If you're wondering how I got this texture, what I did is I had some bubble wrap laying around and I did a little thin coat of paint on the bubble wrap and then gently pressed it in. You can play around with the shapes or the tip of your brush. I'll share with you in a minute how to do these little swirls. So what I did, I just loaded up my brush and did some really cool directional swirls. Notice how I've layered some of this paint. Oh, the saturation on this is terrible. I think, yeah. So notice how I see some texture of the water pooling, how some of the strokes of my paintbrush were thin, some of them are thick. You can layer on top of already dried paint. There is no right or wrong way how to start a page. What I want to see is just your pages not just be plain white. I want them to be filled. So on the Google Classroom, underneath the visual journal prompt page, there are two lists. Each time you are asked to do a visual journal prompt page, I want you to write down the month the prompt was made. So this one was started in September, and then write down what you did. So draw the same object 10 times. So obviously I started drawing this 10 different ways. I was drawing an eraser. So I did it this way, I did it that way, then I would do it probably 7 more times. Okay, so there is no right or wrong way how to start a page or fill it with color. All I'm asking is that you do not turn in pages that are plain white. You also can play around with leaving areas white, but then eventually fill these in with different kind of either text with writing or other drawn images. Okay, so I left some of this white space in geometric shapes. I will go back and actually like fill those in. So I'm going to show you how to get started on a already prepped page. Okay, so this one is just yellow. The cool thing about visual journaling is you can layer and add things to your pages. And I mean layer, I can literally mean layer. You can add sticky notes. You can tape them in there and draw around them. You can do honestly whatever it is. What the whole meaning behind visual journaling is allowing you to experiment within the pages of your sketchbook. So in your assignment, you are going to be asked to create a page using two different medias. What I mean is you're going to use two different materials to create the page. I provide a list of pencil, paint, only if you have paint, and I'm talking acrylic or tempera paint. If you don't have paint, don't use it. I don't expect you to. You can use ink pen, you can use markers, you can use colored pencils. Paint. You can use watercolor. So that is one requirement. So that is the first requirement for the visual journal prompt page. The second requirement is going to make sure that each page demonstrates a 3-shade value scale in its objects. Demonstrate 3-shade value where objects are approaching 3-dimensional. We just finished an assignment that I'm having you do that, so you know what that is. The fourth thing I'm having, well, actually no, the second thing. Third thing I'm having you do, sorry, I cannot get numbers right now. Third thing is making sure that each page is its own different prompt. Each page is a different prompt. You cannot repeat the same prompt twice. And you can't repeat them every other month, or every month for that matter. There are a total of 100 prompts that I have provided. So that means every month you will have plenty to pick from. Okay. Number 4. The entire page needs to be filled. Like completely. No blank spaces, no white areas. Completely filled to the best of your ability. Okay. The reason why is I'm trying to get you guys out of your comfort zone in trying to draw tiny. I know everyone has complete ability to draw tiny. Trying to fill an entire page is a little bit harder, so I'm asking you to get out of your comfort zone and to draw bigger. A couple more. 70% of your page needs to be drawn or painted elements. Since this is an art class, I want a majority of your pages to include some kind of drawing or some kind of element. And then the 30% of each page is going to have writing or note-taking. The idea of visual journaling is to add a little bit of a combination of the visual component and a written component of journaling. So journaling is all about writing, right? So visual journaling is putting pictures to words. Hence why storybooks and just books, some picture books exist in general. And lastly, the thing that is important and I think of interest for all of you is that each and every page needs to be in color. Okay, this is a little. So that is how you can potentially get started on a visual journal prompt page. You need to make sure that each time you create a page, that two different medias or mediums, the things that you use to create the page are used from a list of pencil, paint, ink pen, colored pencils, watercolor, markers, whatever it is that you have at your house. I want you to use. I want you to make sure that you demonstrate 3-shade value scales where objects are approaching 3-dimensional. Each page is a different visual journal prompt. Make sure the entire page is filled. 70% of your page has drawn or painted elements, 30% has writing or note taking, and the last part is that your page needs to have color. So here is an example of what a page could potentially look like. So this is what I did for one of the prompts. Notice how 70% of it has about drawn or painted elements, and the 30% has written elements to it. It is up to you which prompt you want to do. This was an introduction page of introduce yourself. Again, every page is going to be unique and different, and you as the artist have complete control about what you make or show me. It can be personal. It can be exploring. It can be note-taking. I want you to get into the habit of creating artworks that are more than just an assignment. These can be therapeutic. Another example of what I mean by note-taking. Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I will see you all in class.